Hey everybody, Randy Patterson here with Boomerocity. As you already know, if you've watched any of our interviews, you know that we love the blues. And so it just is no surprise, I'm sure, that I jumped at the chance to talk with one of the founding band members of the group Blues Traveler. And we talked to him about their brand new album called Traveler's Soul. You see the album cover behind me. And got to talk with Chan Kinchla, the guitar player, and like I said, co-founder of the band. Had a fun talk with him. Just talked about some of the history of it, some funny stories, insight into this new album, which is a great album. I encourage you to get it if you don't already have it. And actually, believe it or not, asked him about his guitar collection, which is pretty cool. You want to hear that as well. So as always, I ask that you hit like, hit subscribe, share with your friends. None of that costs you anything except a few seconds of your time, but it helps us tremendously. So if you would, I'd greatly appreciate it. So without any further ado, here's my first of what I hope are many more interviews in the future with Chan Kinchla of Blues Traveler. Take care.
What's going on, Randy? How are you?
Everything's going great up here in the Smoky Mountains. I got to guess that little tyke that I saw leading in before you kicked on the camera, was that a grandson, a son?
Grandson. I like it. No, that's my son. No, it's my son.
Oh, your son. Okay. I'm sorry, but hey,
it's from a while ago.
Okay.
Put it that way. He's 19 now, so I think he was probably 3 or 4 in that picture.
Yeah. Look at it. It's cool, man. Love the do he had there. So
yeah, he was a little tyrant.
Yeah, I had a friend that had 2 boys. They weren't twins, but they were very close in age. And he, instead of calling them their real names, he called them Search and Destroy. So, and they lived up to
twins. Oh, good Lord. Yeah. My brother, Tad, who's the bass player of the band, has twins, two twin boys. And they're getting older now, but those first 5 to 7 years, they had their hands full.
Yeah. Well, my oldest niece has 2 beautiful identical twin girls, and they are 6 years old now. And
how cute.
Yeah, I can't tell them apart, so I just call them Thing 1 and Thing 2. So
and that's nice. As an uncle, you just get the good part.
That's right. I get to spoil them and then leave. So but well, hey, thanks for taking the time to join me, man. I've been a fan of the band for a very long time. So first of all, I want to thank you for all the years of great music, man. That's
awesome. We do our best.
You are the best, and I appreciate it. And as a fan and a non-musician fan at that, I appreciate all you guys do and the sacrifices you make to be on the road to please fans while providing for your families. So
the dirty secret is we actually, our favorite thing to do is play live. So touring is something we love to do. I mean, some of the logistics wear you out in between, but once you get on stage, it's always great.
There you go. So a question I'm asking all the artists before I get into the meat of the interviews is their view of things post-pandemic. How's the post-pandemic music world looking to you now? Is it back to the old normal, or is it a new normal?
It's on steroids now, because bands didn't tour for like 2 years. So everyone's releasing stuff. Everyone's out. I know, on the nitty gritty, it's impossible to get good crew people. It's hard to get good tour buses. All the little stuff that makes you know that it's busy is hard to get. So I know a ton of bands are out. But we've been lucky. We've had great crews. We managed to get. We had a tour bus snafu this summer that was pretty brutal. So we got a little bit of it, but it's busy now, and let's say it's roared back.
Very good. You seen any difference in the crowds, how they're acting, things like that?
Definitely the first year. I mean, the crowds are great. We've been blessed with great crowds. I do remember we went out actually earlier than a lot of bands. We were back out the summer after. And some of the first concerts, we were like the first show at Red Rocks that was full, that was open, 100% open. They were doing small numbers before.
Right.
And that first summer, the crowds were delirious. There was just so much energy because people have been cooped up for so long.
Yeah.
So some of that almost manic intensity is died off a little bit. But yeah, I can tell people are happy to just be back having summer fun. Concerts are great. I think of it as a little bit of the old magic. Why is it great? It's because we're all there, and the music's good, everything's good. It's it's something you can't really put your finger on. You just know it when you're in the middle of it.
That's right. I know for me as a fan, I've always appreciated good shows, but as one that gets invited to a lot of them, I hate to admit it, but pre-pandemic, I kind of took it for granted.
Yes.
And I was thinking, maybe next time I'll catch them and such. Well, now, I mean, we lost so many artists during that time frame, either COVID or not. We lost a lot of artists across the genres, and so now I have a much bigger and deeper appreciation of live music, not only for the guys, on the bigger stages like you guys are, but even cover bands. Just being able to go out and just enjoy live music anywhere.
I think we joke Blues Traveler because in 35 years ago we started in high school, and we've been on tour ever since, every year. And so we joke we finally got a year off, but it took a pandemic to keep us home, a global pandemic. And I will say it was nice to kind of recharge and take a step back, but it did make me realize how much I loved it, and it did. There is a certain taking it for granted, but we've toured a bunch the last couple of years, so now we're probably back to taking it for granted.
Well, I'm not. That's for sure.
Right on, Obi.
I'm going to try, even though I'm in East Tennessee, over in the Knoxville area, which is where I saw you guys. The only time I've seen you guys in concert was at the Bijou 5 or 6 years ago.
Right on.
But I know you guys are going to be playing in Nashville later this month, so I'm going to try to make it over there if I can, and catch your show over there, because I know it promises to be a good one.
Ryman's just such a great old venue, and Nashville's a music town, so we have a great time when we play there.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast for you. So this new single, man, wow, I love it. I love it. And I love the album. So tell me about the single, and tell me about this album.
Well, we've released a few singles off it. So which single in particular are you talking?
The last one was well, let me just say I love Waterfalls. I know I think
Me
it's
too.
I can't stand the rain, I think, is what you guys just released.
Yeah, which came out really cool too.
Yeah.
But TLC, strangely enough, who wrote "Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls," we actually, when they're kind of from our era. They were coming up when we were. So in the early 90s, and that song, "Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls," was a big hit at the same time Runaround was.
Right.
So, on MTV and VH1, for you kids who don't realize, that's how we got our music back in the mid 90s.
Back when they actually played music on those stations. Yeah.
So on VH1, it was Blues Traveler, TLC, and then a Seal, "Kissed by a Rose on the Grave."
Yep.
Those are like the three jams of the summer. So we would do all these radio festivals and big concerts because we were working, top 40, which was a trip in itself for some scraggly hippies like us. And we got to know TLC because they were on all of them too, like the VH1 Movie Awards and all these the Hot 100 concerts. Mm-hmm. So we were actually, friendly with TLC. So we were looking to, it was great to do all these really classic, deep R&B and soul cuts, but we wanted to throw a few left turns in there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that one was one of those songs, which is really, it's an R&B song.
Yeah.
As it, a lot of hip hop is R&B choruses and so it fit right into kind of what we were doing. But I thought that one came out really cool.
It did.
And the lead singer from Train's on that as well, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Who we had just toured with last summer. Last summer.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So what was different aside from maybe this particular approach to the album and having I mean, you guys have worked with others on your records before, but this one here is just chock full of so many cool names and amazing talent. Aside from that, what was different about putting this album together compared to all of your others or any other albums you guys might have guested on elsewhere?
We kind of approach every record differently, and I think that's part of what's kept us kind of engaged and creative over these years. It's kind of, we try to kind of challenge ourselves and try and do different things. This came about because during the pandemic, we had our name's Blues Traveler. People have been saying, got kind of tired of hearing, well, you guys aren't really playing blues. And we're started out as a blues band in high school, believe it or not. And then evolved from there. And, a bunch of white kids from the suburbs playing blues. We weren't quite ready to do the classic blues record anyway. So we had the pandemic, we had an opportunity kind of came together to do a blues record, and it came out really cool. We had a blast doing it, got nominated for a Grammy. It did really well. And we decided it would be kind of cool to try it with kind of one of our other foundational pieces, which was R&B. And honestly, John's more of a kind of an R&B type singer anyway. So his singing on this record is just over the top. He did such an amazing job. And working with the producer, Matt Rollins, who knows a million people, that's kind of the secret sauce of getting a lot of the cool guests. So that was just a big joint collaborative effort. And for us, we track it all, get it all organized. And then Matt's kind of involved in getting all the people on and the logistics of having them record and where they record. So then it's like a kid in the candy store getting all these tracks with all these cool guests on it later. But honestly, for us, it's just like a master class, taking apart all these great songs and seeing how they did it back in the day and putting our spin on it. So I think we learn and get as much out of doing them as hopefully people do listening to them.
Were there any surprises while you guys were putting this together? Anything it's like, whoa, out of all the albums we've done, we didn't anticipate this, whatever it was.
I mean, what's cool is listening to the recording techniques. Honestly, it's because we really break them apart and see how they're doing it, and just hearing some of the recording techniques from these songs from like the 50s and 60s was so neat, because everything's automated now and Pro Tools and digital. Back then, you could hear they had to like put two people in the room and they had to sing harmonies together and like these cool little parts are just, not perfect. And that's kind of what makes it sound so perfect.
Yeah.
So breaking all that old school production down was really cool. And those people were so creative back then when they made the records, because they had to be, and they had one take. They couldn't try a million different ways to cut up pieces and fix this and fix that. They had to be on when they recorded it, or they'd have to redo it. So you can hear the human element, I think, a lot, which it's a cool way to do a record. That's the way we used to do records way back in the 90s as well.
Oh, way back then.
We remember how when they were recorded live to tape.
Yep. Back when tape wasn't as expensive as it is today, and you have to do Pro Tools, right?
So I gather Pro Tools has a lot of benefits to it. It keeps recording costs down. It gives you a lot of flexibility. So, I mean, it's a no-brainer at some point, but you do, I think, lose some of the secret magic of trying to get it all live on tape. So, it has its pluses and minuses. It's just a cool... I do love Pro Tools.
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot of work doing it to tape, and there's a lot of sitting around waiting to get the tape right and get the sounds right and get the take right. It's a long process. It takes a lot of patience.
Which song? I don't ever ask what's your favorite, because it's like picking your favorite kid, and even if they have a mohawk, you don't want to say, "Hey, that's my favorite kid," right? So,
right. I mean,
but on a song.
That kid Rowan, he always calls himself the better child. So I agree with him.
Nothing like sibling rivalry.
I do love Waterfalls. I really love. There's another story. There's Groove is in the Heart by Delight.
Yeah.
And it's another story. That song and Delight was coming up in New York in the Lower East Side when Blues Traveler was in the late 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And then we used to see them around, and they were playing some of the same clubs we were during, because that was during the whole Club Kids era in New York, like the Limelight. And we were doing our own kind of Lower East Side, dive bar hippie thing that was going on as well with us and like Spin Doctors and Joan Osborne. But we were still playing, we were all around each other. So we would see them around. So that song kind of came up at that same time. And that was a blast to just throw all together. So that one I'm quite fond of. And Fool for You was really fantastic. That's a song when you look back, it sounds at first like a real soul kind of R&B song, which it is. It's got a lot of the classic style, but the time signature is really weird. The instrumentation's like turned on its head. It's actually a really kind of progressive, interesting take on R&B, which at first you just think it's got these great croony R&B choruses, but it's actually a really kind of hip take on R&B. So that was another one that came out really cool.
So with those, out of all those and the ones you mentioned, which one would you point to as a calling card? Saying if you guys like this, you're really going to dig the rest of the record.
Like I said, I like the funky, the weird stuff. You know what's also really good is Qualified. That Dr. John song came out really cool. They're all so different. My favorite is Groove is in the Heart. It's because it's a cool combination of kind of that R&B style. It sounds kind of like Blues Traveler, but it's also new and weird. So I'm always going to lean towards new and weird. That's just my nature. So I like Groove is in the Heart.
Cool. So I want to shift gears a little bit away from this album and kind of maybe a reflection over your career in the band and such. And I'm doing this for a feature I'm working on, and I'm hoping it gets some traction. It's not been done yet, but I would love to know if any funny or interesting stories that you have, you, the band, fans, anything like that would be maybe like a nice side story to maybe when you guys did Runaround or Hook or, early in your career, maybe reactions today to some of those.
It's so funny because when these stories come up, because we tell them all the time, we're like, oh, that's a great one. And then when someone asks me, my mind goes totally blank. I mean, I just have these great memories of, if we're talking about Runaround, we recorded Runaround up in Bearsville, New York, which is a famous studio up there. And, we hadn't had any real radio traction at all. And so we weren't necessarily expecting it. We were just hoping to make a cool album for our fans. But it's a very basic song. It's the same chords throughout. Little electric guitar, a bunch of acoustic guitar. I knew John had a great melody and the hook was great, but it sounded very like Blues Traveler. But then we went down to Electric Ladyland Studios where, in New York City and did all the overdubs. And we had Mark Quinones put all that percussion on. And then Chuck Lavelle did piano and keys.
Wow.
And as they slowly built all that in, I was like, oh my God, this could be a hit. This thing sounds amazing. So I remember sitting in Electric Ladyland Studios hearing like Chuck Lavelle put his part on and Mark Quinones putting all the percussion on. And if you can hear the song, it starts out really basic and slowly but surely, Mike Thompson and Steve Barbiero, our producers, did an amazing job mixing it and adding those elements in so it slowly builds. And it really just took off. So that's a great example of how just the right guest or overdub and the good production, good mixing can really take what's a kind of a flat but solid song and really make it something magical. So that's my cool Runaround story.
Well,
For me, it was special.
I didn't realize Chuck was on that because I've interviewed Chuck like 3 or 4 times, and what a gracious man he is.
Oh, he's a beautiful guy. Yeah.
And what a legend, what history is tied to him and his.
One of the coolest things about Chuck Lavelle, just for me, because he's played on so many amazing records and obviously all his work with the Stones. And we opened up for the Stones a couple years later, and Chuck was out playing with him, and he came over and said hi, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But there's a whole documentary about him out. And in the ad for the documentary, in the little trailer, they're playing Runaround in the background. I'm like, of all cool Chuck Leavell songs they could have picked, they put Runaround back there. I was like, yes, but yeah, cool guy. And I guess we've always, we came from the Lower East Side in New York, where we first started playing music. There was so many real players, great bands. Everyone was playing every night in all these similar bars, and we would all sit in with each other and try different combinations. And there was a lot of like this jam scene we were kind of into, but a lot of more roots rock and singer-songwritery stuff. And we were all playing with each other, so we got really comfortable early on.
Wow.
Sitting in and jamming with each other. So it's always been kind of part of our DNA to collaborate with as much as possible. There's really no reason not to do it as much as possible.
Cool. Well, on this record, Back to It, is there any leftover work that will be like maybe a sequel to this particular theme of covering some of the
at this point, we've done the blues one, and we could do more, but I think we're kind of chomping at the bit to do another original record. Right before the pandemic, we did Hurry Up and Hang Around as a original studio record. So the last couple of years, you need a certain amount of emotional steam and momentum to embark on the process of a whole originals album. So I think this is a great kind of step away to kind of clear our palate. But I think at this point we're ready to go back in, some point soon, hopefully, and do a studio originals record. That's probably that's the next plan.
Very cool. So I want to get completely off of albums and ask about guitars. I'm not a player. Cool. I'm not a musician at all. I just do air guitar.
Right on. That's how I started.
And I'm darn good at it, so you better watch it. But but I'm just curious, and if you don't want to answer part of this, I can understand why, but for security reasons and such. But how many guitars do you own, and what do you consider to be the holy grail, and do you own it?
Well, listen, I have a lot of guitars to like non-professionals. I have probably like 30 or 40, which is not, probably 20 are really nice guitars, which I'm, ecstatic that I get a chance. But to be honest, I have my touring, because I'm doing a lot of soloing. If you're switching guitars all the time, the scale is always a little different. If you notice, most soloist guitar players just have one guitar and that's what they play for the show. Because if you're switching around, then the scale changes and you muff more notes. It's like you want to be comfortable. So it's usually like I'll have one guitar I play on tour for the last, it was a Les Paul for the aughts. In the last 5-6 years, it's been a great Paul Reed Smith McCarty. And at home, I have a great acoustic that I write on, and I play around town in this band called my local side hustle, a band called Warhorse, which I gotta promote. W4RHORS3 Warhorse. But I have a great Gibson SG, like a 2000 Gibson SG, which I play for all those shows because it just feels great. So I have all these guitars, but those are really the only 3 guitars I've been playing for like the last 5-6 years. The rest are tucked away, and every now and then I take them out and look at them and make sure they're. But then so that's the funny part about guitars. So I've sold some guitars over the years I wish I kept. But I've gotten a lot of great free guitars, so I can't complain.
There you go. Now, I was talking earlier today with Steve Conti, that was with New York Dolls for a while up in your neck of the woods. And we were talking about guitars, and he was telling about some he sold that he wished he kept. And you could retire off of 1 or 2 of those kind of deals, Well,
that's the thing now is the older guitars are such massive collector items for wealthy people that aren't even really players, that for a working class player like me, I'm not going to spend $100,000 on a guitar. I mean, some of those vintage guitars, that's what they're worth. I'm very pleased. I have a bunch of really well-made, high-end, handmade, great guitars from Paul Reed Smith, Gibson, Fender guitars, Taylor guitars that are just fantastic. I don't really know what they're worth, but they're definitely not worth $100,000.
There you go. After Clapton auctioned off his for his rehab center, I saw them at the Dallas International Guitar Show when I still lived there. I mean, the stand right next to the plexiglass that is holding Blackie that sold for, I think, $1 million.
Yeah,
I'm just looking at it and going, I would still sound like crap if I picked up that $1 million guitar as much as I would a Squire, you know.
Well, here's the dirty little secret. You know, the pickups in the guitars, especially the original ones, they slowly lose their magnetism.
Yeah.
So some of these classical guitars with the original stuff, if you actually plugged them in and play them, wouldn't sound that good.
There you go.
They need to be kept, and maybe you got to change the pickups, and then they're not the original.
Right.
So
then every now and then I'll pick up
I've got a friend who's got some just amazing. Every now and then I'll pick them up, and it's so cool how old they are and some of their heritage. But I like some of the new ones play better and sound better.
Well, they're probably made better too because they're machine wound and all that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So
and you know, some of those old ones were so handmade that some of them just are vintage, but they weren't that great made. But you know,
yeah,
they sure look cool.
They sure do. The flaws, though, you have to overlook them. It's like, well, I won't give personal analogies there, but
we all got some flaws.
That's right. That's right. Especially me. So what's on you and the band's radar for, say, the next several months? And then I'll give you my last two questions. That one, and when you step off the tour bus of life up at the great gig in the sky, to borrow from Pink Floyd, how do you want to be remembered, and what do you hope your legacy is?
Well, we've been out pretty much since July. We started Red Rocks July 4th and had a great summer tour with Big Head Todd. That was just went fantastic, despite the bus drama in the middle. And so we've been out. So we're actually wrapping up. The end of the year for us is in Nashville at the Ryman. Great way to finish up. It'll be live streamed, by the way. And so at that point, we're all going to collapse and not talk to each other for 2 months. So that's usually the first stage of finishing tour. And how I'd like to be remembered, it's not really the first and foremost of my thought process at this point. I just want to try and play well and be a good human. And if that's how I'm remembered, for playing well and being a good human, I'll take it.
There you go. There you go. Well, Chan, this was a blast. Thank you for taking the time. And again, thank you for all the years of great music. And I'm going to try to catch you in Nashville when you guys are there this month.
Say hi if you get the chance.
I will. Just don't have them shoot me on sight backstage, okay? So
you got it.
All right, man. Take care. Stay safe. Stay well. And I'll try to see you in Nashville.
Peace. Nice talking to you, man.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.